Fleur Worker is a born and bred dairy farmer based at Mossburn. Her experience over the years has included time working in corporate telecom in the cities, self-employed contract milking, employing up to 8 people over 2 farms, and most recently working with dairy farmers who employ migrants in the Southland region as an account manager for the region's immigration law recruitment. That was a mouthful. She's passionate about people and helping employers find joy and success in working with their own people. So Fleur will be covering how to create and build a positive team, as well as how to get the best out of yourself and your staff to reap the benefits. So thanks, Fleur. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Just my disclosure, this is the first time I've done something like this before, so bear with me. I've been thrown in the deep end a little bit. I'll just quickly share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see that, Fleur.
Yep. I like pink, excuse the pink. So yeah, thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the 2 speakers so far. It's been great to hear. I wish I'd gone second now, because a number of things that Matthew's covered, I've sort of got in here as well. You can tell who one of my mentors has been over the years. So I guess just this, I call this working with people, because as farmers, we aren't just in the business of making milk or fattening animals. We're actually in the business of working with people. So just a quick overview, just I'll introduce who I am, and then I want to talk about accidental leadership, belonging, expectation, and a book that I value a lot called The 5 Languages of Appreciation. So firstly, I'm a proud mum of 3 kids. Those are my 3 up there, and that's been definitely my most important job to date. But I'm a born and bred dairy farmer, originally from the North Island, but we moved to Southland when I was a kid. Did a BCom at Otago, not really sure what I wanted to do, so I moved to the cities and spent 4 years working in corporate telecom. On there, I did 2 of those years on a leadership development program with 9 other graduates from throughout the country. So that was a pretty cool couple of years. Woke up one day and wondered what on earth I was doing, climbing a corporate ladder and living in Auckland at the time, and moved back to Southland and got a job as the boy on my one of my parents' home dairy farms where I had grown up. After that, spent the next 9 years self-employed contract milking on dairy farms, both with contract milking as well as an equity partnership. And then the last 3 years, since my little people have been a bit more self-sufficient, decided I wanted to get back into kind of working with people a bit more than just the farm team. And like Megan said, spent the last 3 years working in what we call immigration recruitment, so helping dairy farmers throughout Southland. We brought in guys from the Philippines and Nepal to with experience to work on dairy farms, and obviously working with visas and helping them settle them into New Zealand. But yeah, Mossburn is home now, and I'm currently in the process of, as Matthew hinted before, setting up my own business. So watch this space. So I just want to start with just a quick video. Simon Sinek, you may or may not have heard of him. And basically, he's someone who I've got a lot of inspiration from recently. And this video will kind of set the scene for the theme of what I want to talk about over the next 20 minutes or so. So Megan's just going to jump onto her screen and share this YouTube video quickly.
The soft skills, you know, we call hard and soft skills. Like soft actually sounds soft, you know, it's hard skills and human skills. And everybody knows that if you want someone to do a job, you have to teach them how to do their job. Like if you're in sales, we'll teach you how to use the computer, and we'll teach you how to use the phone system, and we'll teach you how to, like, what our process is. If you're an accountant, you go get a degree in accounting and you learn how to do the job. And when we're junior, we have to be really good at our jobs. That is our job. And if we're good, we get promoted. And we eventually get promoted to a position where we're now responsible for the people who do the job we used to do, and nobody teaches us how to do that. And so we don't teach leadership. We don't teach the skills that are required to take care of people, which is all leadership is. And the amazing thing is regardless of our rank and regardless of our position, these are skills that we all need. Organizations can do a much better job of teaching us listening and effective confrontation and how to give and receive feedback and empathy and patience and all of these things that if you're going to be a parent, you better start learning them. But if you're going to be a human being, you should probably learn those too. It helps us interact with each other better, with customers better, with vendors better. And at the end of the day, we're more confident in ourselves because we're bringing all those skills back home to our families and our friends. And the best part about it is when an organization gives that kind of education and teaching and training to their people, the net benefit is people feel like the company cares about them as individuals, not as simply somebody who fills a job function. And that's what breeds loyalty and love for our companies.
Yeah, I heard that. I hope you all did too. So I guess what he's sort of saying there is that we've always been calling them the soft skills, and they're not soft skills, they're actually just human skills. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that I want to go through. So, there we go. So I guess something that's been brought up there, and actually Matthew said the same thing, is that often farmers end up being accidental leaders. I know I was certainly that, just sort of, we wanted to be farmers, and then the bigger we grew, the more we realized that actually we weren't just farmers, we were actually people leaders. And at one point we were employing 8 people on our 2 farms, and as well as obviously their families were there as well, and some of the wives were employed on farm too. And so we had to learn the hard way, and we certainly didn't get it right first time, and we spent a number of years figuring out what not to do. And so basically what often happens, especially in farming, when there've been multiple generations of farmers, they often just find themselves leading their own teams in the way that they may have been led when they were younger, whether it be by a family member or someone else. And unfortunately, that doesn't work anymore. And so it's just because you know how to get grass, turn grass into milk or grass into meat, doesn't mean that you're actually going to be a good employer, a good leader. So we need to upskill exactly what Simon was saying in that video clip. So I love a good quote. So there's quite a few quotes through my presentation. So this is just a classic from Simon, who was on that video. Be the leader that you wish you had. So just that's a good way to start. So talking a bit more about accidental leadership. So again, as both of the previous speakers have already said, the current market, the younger generation coming through, technology and communication, social media, it's created this workforce that they know more about what they're entitled to, and they want different things to what the older generations may have wanted in years gone by, which again Matthew touched on. And so I hear a lot in amongst the community, a lot of in my work that I've been doing, working with dairy farmers over the last few years, is there seems to be a lot of just complaining, oh, the young people don't want to work, they don't want to do it. And it's like, well, the reality is that is who they are. So let's adjust our businesses to this current world and figure out how we can, I guess, make our businesses more adaptable to those, to that younger generation coming through. So a lot's changed in the 10 years since we first started employing or recruiting people. We would put a job advertisement up for a dairy farm assistant, and you'd get between 60 and 100 applicants. And it was a very overwhelming experience. And you sit there and you think, how am I going to do this? Whereas now you put a job advertisement up for a farm assistant, and you might be lucky to get 1 or 2 applicants. And often they're actually not even in New Zealand anyway. So you've really got nobody. So times have changed a lot. So now's the time to I guess, become what I call a preferred employer. So basically we have to, as employers, we have to focus on what our competitive advantage is, because no longer are we screening applicants, to come to work for us. they're screening us as employers. They've got dozens of options, and they're going to go, well, who's going to give me the best future, or the best environment, best team. Next quote: if you always do what you've always done, then you always get what you've always got. So my dad taught me that ever since I was a little girl, and that's something that I'm really big believer on. If we can't just carry on doing what we've always done, something's got to change if we want to be able to attract people and retain them. So something that I'm really passionate about, and anybody who knows me hears me harp on about this so much, but one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, both as an employer, but also working in big teams in my corporate life, and then in a really remote team, where the last 3 years my team's based throughout New Zealand, and we do most of our interactions via Zoom, is that you have to create a sense of belonging within your team. It's just a must, and I've listed a few things here that I feel come out of people feeling like they belong. So, like in our early years employing people on the dairy farm, we lived in the Catlins, in the Wops. It was quite an undesirable place to live. The weather was crappy. Our housing wasn't always amazing on some of one of the farms that we ran there, and we just couldn't keep people, and we couldn't figure out why, because at the time we were just so focused on milking the cows. And I guess we soon realised that we had to do things differently to attract people to come and work for us, or work with us in our team and our environment. And so I guess that was when we realized that actually the people that do it well, and what I felt in my corporate life before farming, the teams that I felt that I were most engaged in were the ones where I felt like I belonged. So we decided that was, I guess, our mission. And it got to a point after a few years of trial and error, where we did get to a point where we would have people calling us when we weren't even advertising, wanting to come for an interview so that they could be in line to come and work for us, which was incredibly humbling. And of course, and some of those people joined our business, 5 or 6 years ago, and are still within the business. And we haven't recruited in the official way ever since, because you talk to these guys and girls and their families, and they feel like they belong. They're part of our family. And so a friend of mine, Grant, has told me this quite recently, and I grabbed it. So the emotional equivalent of oxygen is belonging, which, because I'm such a keen person on belonging, it just made sense to me. So some of you may have seen this. It's kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's something that I refer to. It was psychologist, and I studied it at university, but it's kind of commonplace. And what it's saying here is that having a sense of belonging isn't something that's nice to have or something people should dream of. It's actually been recognized, for many, many years as a human need. It's one of the human needs in order to actually be human and enjoy life. So that's why it's such an important part of an employment relationship and teams. So over the years, I've spent a lot of time working, obviously in recruitment. I've worked with a lot of people, brought people into teams, worked with a lot of employers, and I often ask the question, what makes a good employer? And often they come back to that sense of belonging. And I'm just kind of going to rattle off a list of some of the things that people say make a good employer. And these are some of the things that, again, they're not soft skills, they're human skills, and they're things that we do in our communities and our families. But and it's not difficult, it's not rocket science to actually introduce these into your business. So some of these things that Matthew's already touched on, sharing your vision, getting to know them, involving their families. So that when people talk about, when people are happy and they talk about their employers and their relationship with their team, these are some of the things that they say make good employers. And again, like I said, I don't feel like it's rocket science. It's not hard to do a lot of these things, but it makes all the difference when it is done, I guess. And I've just listed those there more for people to look back to later. So something that I've always prided myself in is also being conscious of the language you use when you're talking about the people that you employ. So we've always really focused on the word team, really inclusion words. And so if I'm introducing someone, you know, that works on our farm or works in my team, I say, you know, hey, this is John, we work together, instead of this is John, he works for me. Because you see, like I remember when I first started doing that, you see the look on your employees' faces when you change the way you talk about them, that we're a team and we work together, rather than he works for me. And it can be simple things like that actually just they kind of stand up a little bit taller, and they're, oh yeah, I work with them, you know, and they don't feel like there's an us and them, and you know, you're the boss and they're the employee, because it's not inclusion, it's not a sense of belonging. But yeah, anyway, next one. So my next topic that I wanted to talk about, and unfortunately Matthew's beat me to this one as well, expectations. So just like in all relationships in life, setting expectations is so important for both success and enjoyment. But for some reason, especially in my work in the last few years, working in recruitment and being kind of the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, when people are struggling to keep their people, they come to me and they say, find me someone. Often it's actually just because the expectations weren't set, and often that's where the conflict between both employer and employee can happen, when the employee as well as the employer aren't actually setting clear expectations from the beginning. And that might be a case of your pet peeves or something, you know, as an employer, what are the things that really bug you and that you just really want to make sure that this new employee that comes into your farm doesn't do, so that they don't bug you. And so I guess an example where we for 5 years were involved in a successful equity partnership, and there were 5 equity partners, 5 couples, and we were one of them, and we ran the place, and so we were the day-to-day runners. But then, so in theory, we had 4, I guess, bosses, and they all had different expectations. And so it's really, we had, you know, it took us a while to figure out what everybody's pet peeves were and what was important. And one of them, you know, it was really important that the lawns were immaculate. You know, all the roadsides were mowed, all of the houses, lawns were mowed. So he set the expectation right at the beginning that was something that was important. So we made damn sure that those lawns looked immaculate every time he was anywhere near the farm. And then for someone else, it was, he built the cow shed. So he wanted that cow shed to be spotless. He wanted to be super proud. And whenever he brought somebody around to view the farm, that cow shed was going to be something he was proud of. So it's around understanding what different people's expectations are. And just because you have expectations about how you do things on your farm doesn't mean that was the same expectations that were done on your new employees' previous farm. So what's important to you isn't necessarily what's important to them. So you can't expect them to know what your expectations are. So that's a lot of expects. So just being upfront about it from the beginning, and right even at interview stage, you know, setting some of those expectations right at interview stage. This is a quote that I use: people can't live up to the expectations they don't know have been set for them. So here's, I guess, some questions that I often throw at employers, some expectation questions to ask yourself. And there's just a whole list of different things just to get your thinking. You know, do the people in your team know the answers to these questions? And these are just a real snippet of things. But, you know, what are your pet peeves? What are their goals? What are your values? What are the rules that you have on farm? What are the non-negotiables? You know, when's the next house inspection? Do they have house inspections? What's the expectation of that house inspection? You know, what are the priorities for the day? Are today's priorities different to tomorrow's? How often are you going to be on farm? Because often that can be a real conflict if you haven't set the expectation with your team of how often you're going to actually be on farm, especially if you've got running a big farm or big business. Then, you know, they can be like, often there can be that misconceived idea of, oh, he's never around, he must just be sitting at home drinking coffee. So setting those expectations, and also being really forward with them around what the progression looks like, you know, asking and making sure that they know that, so they know where they sit. and this was a classic that actually Matthew Richards taught me many, many years ago. Matthew was actually a business partner in our equity partnership. And we were walking around the farm one day, and there was a piece of rubbish or something outside the cow shed that was on the ground, and he picked it up and put it in the rubbish bin. And he looked at me and he says, what you choose to walk past, you choose to accept. And I guess that's around setting expectations. And, you know, if you choose to walk past or drive past, you know, say someone's got a messy section, you know, one of your houses, and they're not looking after the section, and you choose to just drive past that and not say anything, either, or you haven't set the expectations, then you're choosing to accept that. And we've used that a lot over the years. So thanks for that one, Matthew. So this is a book, because I love people that share books and book recommendations. Some of you are readers, some of you aren't. A lot of this information can be found on the internet anyway. So it's called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. And it's actually derived from a book called The 5 Love Languages, which was actually written for couples. But the author has since, I guess, translated into a workplace one. And it is a really valuable read for any employer or any leader. And I've talked to a number of employers and just people friends about this and how simple it can be to actually figure it out. So I'll run you through a little bit about what those languages are and how you can adapt them to your own farms. So this from the author, this was all of us thrive in an atmosphere of appreciation. So I guess just a little bit of a background on it. So in the same way that people speak different languages like Japanese, French, and Mandarin, they actually have different languages of appreciation and how they give and receive it. So they've basically put it down into 5 different ways that they call an appreciation language. And so again, like Matthew said earlier, is actually, you know, take the time to get to know your people. And this is just one thing that you might use as a tool that I've definitely used over the years. Even with friends and family, not even just within my teams, but to get to know them and figure out what makes them tick and how they feel appreciated. And it might help answer a question that we had earlier that Megan mentioned around how do you acknowledge performance, or how do you, you know, give bonuses and that sort of stuff. This might give some ideas. So the first one is words of affirmation. So some people actually just like to hear it. So a simple good job, or you know, if you're having a team meeting and just pointing them out and acknowledging the fact that they've done something great or they're doing well or whatever, can be all it takes for some people. Yet there are other people that you can say good job to 12 times a day and they don't feel appreciated. I have a son who's like that. Number 2 is acts of service. So someone with this language actually just likes to be helped out. So it might be help with a difficult project or thinking ahead. You know, you're helping them thinking ahead to save them some time later. Just small gestures like that can make their day a lot easier. So I just sort of see it as like the helping out one. They feel appreciated when someone is there supporting and helping them. The third one is receiving gifts. And it doesn't necessarily have to be big gifts. Sometimes it can just be turning up with some baking, which is quite common in farming situations. Or, you know, it might be, you know, a new pair of gumboots. I'm trying to think of some examples, but it's a case of they actually like to receive something. So, you know, businesses that, you know, some of those bigger corporates and businesses that have reward schemes where they can go online and get things when they've earned points and stuff, they love that. These people love that sort of stuff. Or at Christmas time, you know, they love getting their big package, a big hamper or something. So number 4 is quality time. And so this one is often overlooked in workplaces, but sometimes people just want you to spend some time with them. They want some one-on-one meetings. They want you to check in, ask how their family's going. And also they love the out of work functions. They love to congregate and to just enjoy quality time with their team and with their leaders. So I've written there like an example of, so someone like this, if you just sent out a good job email, they won't, like, it won't resonate with them at all, because they want you, they want the quality time from you. And the 5th one, which is a bit tough in the workplace, but it's physical touch. And so obviously personal boundaries are important to keep in mind, but sometimes it's just a high five or a handshake or a fist bump, pat on the back when acknowledging them for a great job. And it can seem bizarre, but some people, that's all they need. And so obviously this isn't mine, obviously there's that disclosure, this isn't mine, this has come from this book, but it's something that I use a lot, and I use a lot in my day-to-day, as well as working with people around me. And if you can figure out what makes people tick and their personalities and how they feel appreciated, then it can make me so much easier. I had a situation where I was helping a friend recently, and she called me and said, something's just not right between me and my employee. And I just said to her, I referred her to this, and she went and did some research on it, and we talked about it, and it turns out that they had very different languages. And so hers were words of affirmation. So she was saying all the time, well done, you're doing such a great job, but she wasn't hearing it because it wasn't her language. Whereas the employee's language was actually receiving gifts. And she just, her way of feeling appreciated was receiving something. And so I noticed, a couple of days later, I got a message from her, and she sent a photo, and it was actually her birthday, and she'd given her this big, beautiful hamper, and she was beaming ear to ear, and she said, I've just realized, it all makes sense that we were speaking totally different languages, and all the words and wonderful things I was telling her just didn't make her feel appreciated at all. So yeah, just a wee example. But I'm probably well over time. So in summary, I guess to work through, accept that all leaders, may need upskilling at some times, and don't be afraid to reach out for help. Create a sense of belonging within your team and business, and people will stay because they feel like they belong. Set clear expectations in all areas of your business and with all people that you work with. So don't limit it to certain people. Everyone needs to know what the expectations are. And get to know your people and their families, and involve their families, and to show how much you appreciate their hard work in their language. Like Matthew said, sometimes people want to be treated the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. And so a final quote just to finish off from good old Walt Disney: the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Beef and lamb there for you.
That was great. You said that you don't do this very often, but it sure does feel like you do.
Thank you.
That was awesome. So I really liked your examples in there. It's great to show and demonstrate and hear how you've put into demonstration all these messages. That was good. I really like the 5 languages of appreciation. They're actually also languages of love. So there you go.
Yeah, they are, yes.
Yeah, but as an example as well, with the high fiving, after I go to the gym and stuff, we all high five around the group to say well done. So I think it's really important, after a big day of scanning or sharing or anything like this, to give each other a high five and say, you know what, well done, it was good effort, everyone. We'll see you next, tomorrow at 6 a.m. to do it all again type thing. So I think that was really good points in there, Fleur. We do have some questions for you. Did you do any training for leadership, and what one would you recommend?
No, that's not fair. There's been a few B+LNZ things along the way, so like Biz Start, Biz Grow, but no, it's just been a case of figuring it out as I go. And like already been mentioned, mentors. I'm a huge believer in mentors and reaching out and being vulnerable to people who you, I guess, aspire to. Don't be afraid to ask people to be a mentor or to be someone that they can call upon. But no, I guess I've never really seen myself as a leader as such. I just like to help other leaders to achieve and to grow. And I just see a lot of farming people, a lot of farmers at the moment that aren't enjoying their work, and that and a lot of and I've got a real passion of trying to bring back that joy into farming, into teams, and really encouraging young people to come into farming, because it is a great place to be. yeah, so no is the short answer to that question. Not really.
No, that's cool. How can an employer ensure they are being looked after? So from a staff point of view, what can they do to make the team better, I guess?
So say that again. How can
the employee, so the staff member, ensure that they're also giving to the team environment and stuff like that?
Yeah, fair call. But again, it just comes back to those human skills, you know, like just be a good person, look after each other. And because as an individual employee, I mean, it's different if there's just one person on the farm, which is quite common in beef and sheep world, you know, might only be one employee, but actually just bringing back the fun to farming and not being so serious and sitting, you know, looking back at some of those things that I've written on that slide around what how to create a sense of belonging. They're all just human stuff and things, like I said, that we teach our children, or that we try and teach our children, to make sure that we're actually looking after each other. And also, you know, as an employee, checking in on your employers as well. Like, there's nothing wrong with just being human to them too. Like they're all human. You know, if they're having a bad day, just like, you know, you good, mate? How you doing? You know. So yeah, it goes both ways, I think. We're a team at the end of the day.